Yeah.
I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The city of Seward abides by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act in conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of this meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of meeting recording processes is posted in the meeting room. Any citizen may address the council regarding items included on the meeting agenda and are asked to limit their information on the participant sign-in sheet, to include their information on the participant sign-in sheet. Presenters shall approach the podium, state their name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit remarks to 5 minutes. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The city of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of items on this agenda if necessary and may elect to take action on any items listed. You may have noticed this is a little bit different. This time there was a statutory change regarding public meetings, and so we are following the guidance of our city attorney as far as including the way we do public participation is just a little bit different. So allowing the public to speak on every item is part of that, and so we're still working on the language on the disclaimer here, but we'll get better. Please call the roll.
Taylor.
Here.
Coulterman.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
Tonyas.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
Thank you. We have 2 items this evening for the consent agenda.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Taylor, Tonyas, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Morgan, 6-0.
Alright, administrative items. Number 1, acknowledge receipt of Airport Authority resolution requesting levy authority for 2024-2025 fiscal year. Greg.
Yeah, so we kind of begun the budget process as we'll undertake in our next agenda item. Every year, we get a request from the Airport Authority in regards to their levy request. Ultimately, that is approved by you because it falls under the city's levy authority. They're subsequent but other political body of ours. They're asking for the same levy as last year, and looking at the budget and some of the analysis that me and the mayor did last night when we did preparation of the budget, we may even want to potentially table this because it's provided to us in a timely manner. We just need to approve it ultimately with the budget. The reason I say that is, 1, I think the mayor and the administration has done a good job, at least within the property tax request, of not just going right after where the levy was. I think you're going to see from us approximately a 2% request or slightly north of that. Our concern with doing that is by including the Airport Authority within that ask of 2% by us, we may go over the statutory limit that pushes us to the postcard meeting, which I felt was by direction of the mayor. Since we are so close, we'd rather stay off that postcard and keep the tax asking down. You'll also see that we're not operating at a general fund deficit other than street fund like we did last year. So we're not sitting here at the moment going through 60 different projects trying to figure out which ones we're going to axe this year. We may still remove projects, we may add projects, we may do some other things, but right now, as you'll see it proposed in the next discussion, we're not operating at a deficit. We're almost exactly, I think we're $40,000, maybe $50,000 north of a surplus right now. So I don't know that we want to approve this, but I want you to take that in mind. I would ask maybe that this be tabled until the next meeting. Because again, they're asking, another element that's involved in this is approximately the valuation increase that's been proposed is 7% for the city. It may be north of that, but we will not get official numbers until August 20th. So I can't even give you an official number or a final budget number until 2 weeks from now. But being that it's 7%, this levy ask is significant. I have it broken down in your memorandum that's in your packet and also emailed to you today. I believe they're asking for a request of an additional $16,278.
This is not something unusual. We have this discussion every year. In fact, one year when they did ask for an increase in their levy, we actually then lowered the city's levy to offset that. So, because otherwise it would have looked like you raised the city levy when actually you're just adding in their levy to ours. Statutorily, they're combined. So just so that it's just more transparent that way. And so so this is always something, a consideration. And again, it's
So
not.
really tonight, we're acknowledging receipt.
Yeah,
There's no action item, or we can move to acknowledge receipt, but then we may call them back, or the managers and a member of the board to come in and talk to you about where you're at or what you'd like to do. I think, but again, I do not have final numbers, you actually may be able to absorb this and stay off of the 2% plus growth, because it is only $16,000. But until I have the final numbers, I cannot make that guarantee, and I would not want to adopt this or act like we're going to approve this as is tonight if we're not there yet. It's gonna be very close.
Do we have to make a motion or let it just die?
I want to make sure you have any questions about it first, and then if you want to, you could just move that
Acknowledge
we're
receipt.
acknowledging the receipt of it.
Right, because this is just the preliminary request that they're saying this is what we're asking
Right.
for.
Yep.
We were not approving it,
No.
we're just saying that's
Not
what
until
you're
we
giving us.
finalize the budget.
Right. Yeah, but we just, again, my goal has always been to be as transparent, obviously with the council, but with the public, to make sure that everyone kind of sees what's going on, and also not do this all at the 11th hour.
Yeah.
So if you do have questions, we have opportunity to get you those answers.
And we'll have approximately guaranteed 3 more meetings to discuss this item and other items in the budget. If you do move into the postcard meeting, then we'll have a 4th meeting, because we will wait until after the postcard meeting, which is at the end of September. We'll adopt approximately on the 24th. I think that postcard meeting's on the 23rd.
And that's something that we did last year, just because there are some governing bodies that will actually pass their budget before the postcard meeting. And I didn't like that idea, because I feel it's disingenuous to ask the public to comment after you've adopted it. It's kind of what's the point, and I think the spirit of the statutory requirement would say that we need to hear the input and then make a decision if we want to change anything at that point.
So I think this is, we don't want to give the impression of just shooting through this like we do every other year and not being considerate of it and its effects on some of the outcomes that we'll have through the budget process. So I'd recommend acknowledging receipt and then have some discussions, and then maybe if we do decide that we do need to request an adjustment on this, we need to inform the airport authorities so they have the ability to come down and talk to you.
And before that though, is there anyone from the public wish to comment on this item? Alright, we turn to the council. You would like to make a motion to acknowledge receipt?
I move to acknowledge receipt of the request.
Second.
The motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor of Taylor, Tanya, Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Morgan, 6-0.
All right.
And part of the challenge on this is just that we still don't have all the numbers, like Greg said. So, we have a pretty good idea. We sometimes can get guesstimates to help, at least help put this together, but until we get the final, we just very apprehensive about committing too much to numbers that we don't have yet. But, yeah.
Good, ready to
Yeah,
start?
I think so.
Awesome. All right, this is our preliminary draft presentation of the budget. It's gonna be a little more high-end than you're used to in the past. We'll have more of a deep dive when it comes to August as we kind of finalize things. But to give you a rundown of what led us to this point, and huge kudos to City Finance Director and Treasurer Cindy Golden. She led most of the efforts leading up to this point. And then semi got derailed a little bit because we didn't anticipate that we'd have 3 different payroll clerks over the summer, which not only does that lean on her responsibilities to help fill in for those, but then obviously teaching and training, and that is just a large undertaking when you have to sit in and do that for multiple days a week. So, but very diligent work by Sydney, and I appreciate all her efforts and help, along with all the department heads, some of which are here tonight. The budget that you have before you began back in April. We gave out sheets for every budget for the year in anticipation to all the department heads in the administration, filled all those out. In the month of May, we sat down and had individual department head meetings with every single department head and went painstakingly through, line by line, every proposed budget item and line, working with the department heads, Sydney and myself. Through that, we had follow-up and subsequent items that we got through. In June, we started the process of looking at wages, soliciting for things like healthcare, insurance premium liability, BizCo, all these other things that are kind of across the board estimates and costs. In July, we followed up on CIP items and worked with them to make sure that the numbers estimated as best as possible matched what we estimated back in May. And then towards the end of July is when we give them an opportunity to provide us for cash flow purposes, end of the year estimates. So for instance, if you thought you were gonna spend $5,000 on IT and you're gonna spend $5,500, well, you need to know it's $5,500. If you're gonna underspend, and that's a legitimate underspend, we don't just say, well, you got 5,000, spend 5,000. If you don't need it, don't spend it. It doesn't automatically mean it'll be taken away. We work under a real system of trying to analyze those numbers. But if it's gonna be 4,000, estimate 4,000, and then we're gonna hold you to 4,000 to the end of the fiscal year at that point, unless there's an emergency. Then we'll adjust. But so we undertake that in July, fill all these documents in. Me and Sydney argue back and forth about which one of us is gonna do what, get all the numbers in there to the best of our ability. Some of it is different elements that we can give you a whole number, but we haven't had it broken out yet, like an interest item or things like that. And then ultimately, the administration meets with the mayor to propose the budget that you've been given. Again, certain elements of that, like the property tax, the levy, or the assessed values, centralized valuations, some of that stuff has not even provided to us yet. The other big one that's a substantial cost to the city is our liability, workers' comp, and property insurance. That's through EMC and Seward and Lichty. We will not get that till literally right up on the day of almost, where we'll get the final number. It tends to be timed like that. It's almost impossible to move. Years ago, we had the same issue with healthcare, so we're making like weird estimates in the budget. Shane Bach and Jones Group were able to move with us one year and extend that out, so now it does match, so I do have the health insurance numbers. But a huge number that's in here is that property liability. So we'll just kind of cruise through the memo. An emailed copy of this giant 120-page budget was emailed to you today for you to look over the next 2 weeks, or email us back questions. I will hit the highlights of this tonight real quick. And if anybody wants to see us, please request it. Once we kind of get it finalized this week, we'll also put it online for you. So general items, benefits, this is healthcare. Last year we had a 2.1% increase. This year it is a 1.5%. That entire 1.5% is actually going to get passed on to the employees. And it's only one set of employees because that is what pushed the increase, and that is our PPO plan. Our high deductible HSA plan, which is the most used plan, is actually the cheaper plan too. It's the plan that benefits both the employee, we think, and the employee more for the most part. That's the one that has no cost to employees. I mean, it's a pretty good plan. That plan actually went down in cost, both for the employee and the employer side. So we evened that out by the PPO side will have an increase on the employees, the few that take that. And so that's how we'll balance that. We will see an increase in the budget because we do hedge a little bit on it. We can't predict who we hire and who leaves. And if I have an employee that takes a single family PPO, and then I have one that comes in with 6 kids and a wife or a husband, and they take the HSA family, that's a big difference to cost for the city. So we kind of hedge with about 2 to 3, sometimes 4 or 5%. So we just kind of look at what we're looking at for retirees and stuff like that. So there'll be a little increase in there just to help us cover that if we did. But usually it balances out. For somebody that leaves every year, you lose a family one, they gain a single, and then you lose a single one that gains a family. Sometimes it balances out.
How many retirees do you think?
Right now, none.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so.
I didn't think so.
honestly. And I ask, we have the appropriate discussion, because we don't be caught off guard. When we tell our employees that are getting closer up there, we have a respectful conversation, usually during eval time. Hey, what's it look like? What's the next couple of years look like for you? And then see where they're at. Because if there are opportunities like we did with Marilyn when she retired after 40 plus years with us, and also with Rhonda, we get an opportunity to plan that transition, which is way easier to absorb some of that institutional knowledge. So we don't anticipate at this point that we have any, but we have a few coming up in the next few years, I'm guessing. So benefits, basically nothing, a little bit of an increase to the PPO plan members. Wages and COLA, we've defined this for years, and so we just followed that definition. We provided a 3% cost of living adjustment. That was the July CPI. That went down from 3.3 in May. Also, the Social Security adjustment for 2023 was 3.2. The other Nebraska municipalities, the average is 3%. So we felt like that was pretty consistent where the mayor wanted to go. And so we filled that in for the COLA for this year. Also, as always, employees who have a successful evaluation will get a merit evaluation increase, step increase, if they have a successful evaluation, as we do every year. Property workers' comp liability insurance, this one had, I met with Mark Seward, he's estimating on the conservative side 10%. We're hoping it comes in lower, but we don't think it will exceed 10%, but that's, last year, remember, if you remember this, he gave us 20, was the estimate, and it came in at 7. So fingers crossed we get that kind of discount by the time we get to the end of this process. But again, what's driving that, as many of you homeowners know, or business owners in Seward, is that hailstorm and all the claims that we've had that have continued to go in, and all the finalization of all of those claims. So from the administration side, big one for most people is the property tax. Based on my meeting with the mayor last night, we are going to recommend a reduction in the levy from 0.299 to 0.285. While it's a reduction in levy, it does increase the property tax ask of the city. The original property tax ask is listed there in 2023. It was $2,006,456. This year it's $2,046,384. A difference of $39,928 is what we're asking in addition this year. That equates to approximately just below 2%. And so if that number does not change, we anticipate that would keep us below the 2% plus growth that requires you to attend the postcard hearing. This does not include the 16,000 of the airport authority. So the new growth may cover that. But we'll get those final numbers, and then I'll have discussions with the mayor. With that difference, again, that's a surplus, so we do have room to move down to accommodate some of that airport if we just need to slide in. But that'll be a decision for the mayor and the council to make together. As for the sales tax, we continue to see general sales tax growth, but I will say, and I think the people that watch this the closest are Julie, myself, and Joel, along with Sydney. The sales tax is flattened this year. While it's still above, because we estimate conservatively, so if you look back to our old budgets, we're pretty conservative. Nick was very conservative in it, because you don't want to overestimate revenues. We're still above, and most likely will be above the total this year for the general fund, but the amount we're seeing that's coming in that we anticipated, me and Joel, we were hoping for 60,000. We've been as low as 55 pretty regularly. We've had a few of those, right, Joel? So I think that's economics. I think it's just simple. We're getting limited by that. Also, it's hard, and Sydney can attest to this, it's hard to know when we're going to get the economic development funds that the state takes from us. You get a letter in the mail that says at some point in time, we're taking $80,000 from you. That it'll never come. It just does not get distributed to you. We're retaining that for an economic development project, whether that's through the Imagine Nebraska Act or one of the other statewide economic development programs. They're benefiting somebody somewhere here in the city of Seward, because that's why they're taking our sales funds, but they don't make a big disclosure of it. So as those programs continue to be utilized, there may be sales tax that's being redeemed by some of these projects that are getting recouped and not distributed back to us. So, but we still feel like we have a pretty good amount coming in. We do assign all the sales tax to cover the general fund debt expense first, so that's your street funds and things like that. And then once we pay off the debt funds, We take out $150,000 for LBA 40, a few other minor items, and then the portion that goes to the wellness center is a new portion, so it's always allocated on its own. The remainder of it goes into the general fund for property tax relief. So we're not using those funds. We're not asking for more property tax to offset those costs. So there's sales tax for you. I'll just hit the other ones here. You're not gonna see a lot of surprises or big things in the departments themselves. Building inspections, no changes. They're just requesting a new pickup truck to be shared amongst building inspection, zoning, and engineering. So splitting that cost. CDBG, no change. That's an in and out, no specific cost to us. Cemetery, they have a few roadway gravel upgrades and replacement, and then if all holds true, they will do another round of 22,000 in asphalt extensions to continue the asphalt within the North Cemetery. Usually we try to combine that with another project, so if we don't do a project that requires asphalt in the city, then we may not do it that year, because your best deal is to partner with somebody that's already activating on an asphalt project.
Because there are roads through there that are like just gravel, right?
Yes,
Right,
so
so
we'll
we're
replace
not-
the gravel ones
yes.
with asphalt. We're not re-asphalting old junky roads.
So we just kind of gradually, as we can, just kind of keep moving until we get it all done, so. It's not a high priority, but it does make things look nicer and, out there as well.
How much
Last-
more do you have to do?
Quite a bit.
There is.
They're about halfway, I'd say.
Okay.
And then obviously we'll need a plan for, the military section and the new section. That doesn't have it too much specifically in it at this point, so we wanna lay that out. Over time, that will be years down the line though. So that's cemetery. Civic Center, again, this is an in and out, so it's not put on the back of the taxpayers. It's paid for by the Langworthy Trust. So our big one there, we'll be finishing out the Civic Center renovation that's underway. That's a $2.1 million renovation project. That's about close to being a third done. Most of it is demo and reconstruction. They're demoing out the area right now that will be the ADA ramp that connects the original building to the new building. That was going on this week, I believe. So, other than that, nothing specific within the Civic Center. Debt service, the only good part about on the debt service one is we did have a roll-off in general fund debt, which is one of the reasons I believe, and me and Mayor talked about this last night, it's one of the reasons we're not sitting around debating what projects we're gonna cut this year, because we had $237,000 in general fund debt that rolled off, that we paid off last year, so we don't have that continuing expense. So other than that, we have some public safety tax allocation and highway allocation bonds that went away. Pool, oh, the pool. So, as you're all aware with the pump situation that happened this year, she's starting to show her age. And so, we probably need to continue the process of doing some planning to figure out what we're gonna do long-term for a pool, because no matter what, within the next 5 years probably, I'm gonna be upfront with you. We're probably gonna have a pretty big issue that we're gonna need to have a plan in place to start getting ready to have a pool. As you know, the Wellness Center site has a pool generally designed adjacent to it outdoors. There's no specifics to it, whether there's a slide or this, that, or the other, but it generally a pool of substantial size can fit on the southern portion next to Waverly Road. And that's what we planned for. Also, then we can put all of our lifeguards together, put all of our aerobic water stuff together, and we have our pool managers, and we have our certified pool operators like Joel that are all housed in one sole place. But then you also need to come up with solutions and what we'll ultimately do with the old pool in that site. Do we demo it? Do we use it for other purposes? Do we keep some of the building? Whatever it may be. But we're gonna need to have a hard conversation.
How many years old is it now?
Over,
I was gonna guess 20,
I would say over 20.
25 maybe. I remember when
I want,
we.
is it 09?
It can't be 25.
It
No.
won't be that old.
20,
No,
No.
it was, we were out of college.
That's in
we were
Yeah.
15,
July
15
3rd,
with
2004, it was open.
so 20.
20.
Okay.
And the old pool, how old was that?
I don't know. One of the things that keep.
That was built in the twenties.
One of the things to keep in mind too is,
Bad concrete, huh?
is when we do start talking about this, is, the shape of the pool does matter when it comes to the lifeguards that are required. And that's one of the big expenses, and quite frankly, headaches is finding enough lifeguards, cause last I recall was 11 have to be on, so like 11 are on duty at a time.
There's a bunch on duty at a time.
Because of the way it's configured, and so that's something that we will probably wanna take into consideration of what's the most like efficient design that, obviously you don't want just I assume you don't want just one big rectangle, but you also need to understand that anytime you create corners and other angles, that might require another lifeguard, and it's just harder and harder to find lifeguards. That's the reason we can't extend the pool season, is because a lot of them are high school kids and they go back to school, and then we lose almost all of our lifeguards.
So what are we anticipating, the concrete bad or the mechanics of it?
I think
Both,
it's
it's,
the
we already
shape.
have the mechanics
Yeah.
going bad.
Yeah, I
Correct,
think the
Brandon?
mechanics.
It's the vessel itself, all of it's just getting to the point where you're just, I mean, you can keep limping along, it's gonna cost more and more until you decide to do something new.
I know, I was just kinda disappointed in the old pool when we found out that concrete was harder than what they thought.
Right, yeah.
When the vessel fails, that is essentially critical. And when the vessel fails, that's when we'll have to have the serious discussion about the next one, for sure. I mean, it'd be better to have it before it happens and start planning. Again, I think the current planning is to do it at the end of the 10 years that will take to pay off the wellness center, is kind of the general float idea. But if it goes bad in 5 years, you're gonna have to make a decision quickly.
So for next year, what's the ask, do you know?
For the pool, nothing specific, we're just bringing it to your attention that she's starting to do weird things. And when that impaler broke, that was an age thing. And so,
It's not like we have a savings account, we can start putting money in for a new pool.
Well, one of the things that, and we've talked about this, we're doing this with the wellness center, which is having a foundation backing it, just like the library. In an ideal world, all of those, like parks and recreation type amenities, whether it's a golf course or a swimming pool or ball fields, whatever that may be, it would be nice to have some sort of a foundation that you could go to, at least for seed money or to start a fundraising campaign off of. It's just, we just have never had anything for the pool. And it is hard to raise money when you're a government, because people are like, well, I'm already paying taxes, why?
We did have something that was called the amusement fund.
what I would recommend is that we continue to monitor very closely the proceedings of the wellness center and the sales tax. And that at the point that that rolls off, is an opportunity to have a discussion with the community about rolling another one on, similar to the way we talk about bond funds with the schools. If we feel like we made good strides in the wellness center, it's popular, it's successful, and we need to replace this amenity, we're getting to end of life of the pool. Another option is to re-roll the sales tax, have another vote, and fund out the second phase of the wellness center. You can do that without locating the pool there. I'm not guaranteeing the pool would be located there, but you could roll that and pay for the pool as part of that.
Yeah, I'd hate for the taxpayers to think, well, we're gonna move everything up there just so it's all in one place, and that's the only reason, that's the way they're gonna think. I hate for that impression to get there.
Unfortunately, decisions will have to be made. And again, my goal is always to be as transparent as possible, so we're not asking for any decisions tonight on that, obviously, but be thinking about that and maybe talking to, constituents about what they see as a priority moving forward. But it's something that we will be talking about in the future, because I'd rather have a plan than to have an emergency. You saw how people reacted to having that impaler down and the pool not open for a week.
Yeah, we don't want the negativity when
Sure.
the public, last time when they found out, they said the concrete was no good, and then they found out they couldn't even jackhammer it out.
Yeah, out of that, I don't know.
I do.
I'll tell you now, the pool continues to have leaks after leaks after leaks after leaks. It's the ones that we can't locate and fix, those are the ones that concern us, because that can significantly increase costs. The water we put in there, as we all know, is quite expensive. And then if you add to it the fact that we're heating it, which I'll tell you, a mass majority of outdoor pools are not heated anymore, especially the municipal ones. And we might one of the saving graces is, once we have the wellness center, we may move to not heating the pool anymore. So that we can save on, cause gas is tens of thousands of dollars sometimes. Yep,
What I,
When do we start doing that?
we've always heated the
Yeah.
pool, yeah.
Okay.
But like Jessica
There's
said,
nothing like driving by in May and watching steam roll off that thing when you have a cold night, because
yeah.
try to
But
heat pool.
I like Jessica's idea that maybe we set up a fund and start thinking now instead of later.
We can, so we just need some interested parties, and again, you're competing against a lot of other asks right now. I think the wellness center will start winding down, but they'll have their own capital campaigns each year, so. But let's just be cognizant of it and have it on the radar after what we saw this year, that we're gonna
Well-
need to have some solutions.
We as a city can't start setting aside money each budget year? We're not able to do
you
that?
can, but a couple issues. One, we talked about doing that way back with like the lights at the ball fields. It's just that when there's not a clear plan and it's like, well, we'll put $50,000, which is a lot of money, but not a lot of money when you're trying to put
Right.
lights, and it's like, well, then what's, so now we're just tying up money that's not
Yeah.
enough.
I'm just
And
asking,
so-
I wasn't, I
Yeah,
didn't think we
no,
could, but.
I think it would make sense if we were able to
If we had a plan.
have a campaign where you're matching funds, or maybe you know, if you're gonna rely on sales tax, future sales tax to have them go to the people. Cause something like this, I mean, those larger projects, especially with all the chatter down in Lincoln lately with the special session, I think it's just important to be very, very transparent with your taxpayers, and you know, having them giving them opportunities to weigh in on it, so that's our hope.
Have we had any structural engineers looking at it?
Only the biggest one that we've had is that, the southern portion by the diving boards and the diving platform, just monitoring that diving platform. That's a giant hunk of concrete that we stuck in the ground right next to the vessel wall. And so, most of our leaks, surface ones, were over there. So we've done a lot of repairs on that, and our concern is that it's the platform that's causing some of that shift over there.
Are we still putting money away every year for potential wells?
You mean like the field wells?
No.
Or probing more, trying more wells? Have we done that? We haven't done that for a while,
I
have
don't think we've
No,
done
we did it when we did the 2 new wells.
we? Yeah.
Yeah, but as far as just,
Put money away for,
I don't think we.
we used to, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that for a while, so.
So that's the pool.
I have one thing.
Yes.
I was thinking about, moving forward, as soon as the wellness center opens, and then year 1, year 3, year 5, whatever, and we can start taking a look at the impact on the wellness center and the ability for us to continue counting on the revenue that comes from the pool. If the wellness center goes over real big, which I hope it does, and then will it have a negative impact, or will it have a positive impact on the pool? Will people just be more excited about it? So this is the time to have that discussion, because once that wellness center's open, the window closes on us having a chance to study it.
Are you talking about the outdoor pool?
The outdoor pool,
Yeah,
that's
so-
what the
yeah.
Seward swimming pool, the
Mhm.
usage of that, and then we have when the wellness center is prepared and opened up, what kind of an impact will that have on next summer's use or the following?
Yeah, and I think you'll definitely, I mean, the hope is that they complement each other,
Yes.
and that during the season when you can't be outside, you have a pool option.
Yeah.
But, you know, keep in mind, I mean, we lose money on the outdoor swimming pool
Significant.
significantly, and so, you know, but to your point, if we determine, looking at the numbers, that maybe there aren't as many people using the outdoor pools, is kind of what you may be wondering.
I'm just saying, I would like to
But-
take a look at the numbers and how.
But I
it's-
think you would use that information when you decided to build a new pool, as far as how you scale it and right size it. If people aren't using it as often, maybe that makes sense. But then again, you build something brand new,
Yeah,
everyone's gonna,
everyone's
at least
gonna
for
want
that first season, everyone's gonna go anyway.
Yeah.
Did you want like a wave pool so you could surf? Is that what you're thinking?
No.
Oh,
Bigger lazy river.
We have that.
I'm
The other-
thinking lazy river with a swim up bar,
oh.
cash cow.
Revenue.
Yeah, The other thing I was thinking is that, you know, lifeguard training and swimming lessons and things like that, I think the wellness center is ideal for that situation, in its design. And I think the swimming pool also complements that very well, cause someone who took swimming lessons at the Seward swimming pool a few years ago, I remember how, before it was heated, Rick. But anyway, I was just thinking, this might be a great opportunity for us to take stock in the fact that this is the current use for 2024, what will next year will look like.
Because then you can get the word out to people, because are they gonna like the look if we take the historic look away from down there? Cause that's been there way before a lot of us. So if you take that away, you're taking that look away.
I think the other thing though is that, let's just be honest, its proximity to its neighbors over there
Yeah.
I know.
is an issue.
I know.
And I think a lot of people bring that up, and we've had many conversations, including with our industrial partners down there. And there might be time to start removing these public uses from being right next to major industrial uses
Yeah.
long term.
Okay.
Now that we have an option,
Yeah.
and we have some growth within the city, but we need to plan this out. The other thing I'd say is anecdotally, yes, I guarantee there will be a loss in revenue down there, cause it will be a lot of the aerobic swimmers.
Yeah.
And, cause they're just gonna prefer that, it's so much easier, the parking's easier, the pool's warmer, it's indoors, it's by nice locker rooms. They can sit and have coffee afterwards and hang out with Joel. I also think swim lessons to some extent will
I'm
probably.
glad Jane ain't around anymore.
So.
Thank you for that.
All right, we'll keep rocking and rolling because Marisol may be high level on this. LB 840, this is just a path through. We take $150,000 pursuant to our 10-year program. We just reauthorized back in December 23, $150,000 plus any of the repayment money, and we just allocated it all for the next year. So nothing too specific or special there. The fund's still in generally good order. Electric, we're recommending a 3% increase on this one. We have two major projects coming down the pipeline, and I still, now that we're through the summer and I've kind of reevaluated our debt situation and got to speak with some of our potential projects we're looking at and what we need to build out, we may be able to finance some of this. And I'm gonna go back here in the next probably 30 days and talk to some of my bond people in our timelines. We have $2.1 million anticipated for a new substation to serve basically as redundancy down in the rail campus and the Walker substation. We're not sure which one it will land by, but we need redundancy and we need capacity just in general in the city. And it will help with that across the board for the whole city, but that's the location it needs to be located in. We're also waiting, as I've talked to you before in the past, that the transmission substation, the 115, that is owned by MPPD, which is how they wheel in all the power wholesale to us, and then they serve Milford, Norris, which used to be the old Seward Rural Electric, and ourselves. We're the three fed off that. That thing's getting maxed out. It is essentially getting to the point where it's gonna be tapped, which we've known. This is not, me and Jonathan have known this for years. And PBD, we had just met with them again this morning. They anticipate approximately in 27, they will upgrade that. Right now it's currently about a 52 megawatt substation that feeds us wholesale. They're gonna upgrade that to 100 megawatts. So almost a doubling of that substation capacity. Again, that's supposed to be utilized by Milford, Norris, and ourselves. But we'll be one of the predominant users of that upgrade. So, but to get ready for that and to be able to build out power capacity in the city, our long-term plan, projects come or not, we need to have redundancy and be ready to start building out. So just like we did in 2019, our next project is another 10 megawatt substation somewhere around the rail campus. That's a $2.1 million project. The other one is voltage conversions in the older sections of town. We put in for a grid resiliency grant on this, just north of $1 million. Our hope is we get it, but we need to start this project and get working on it. And so that project's also included. I think it's a $1.3 million conversion upgrade. I'm gonna look at financing those because we're gonna roll off a couple $100,000 in yearly debt. And so by having about a $1.5 million bond, on electric revenues. We can replace that in 2 years and start paying off maybe a 15-year debt to do some of these major upgrades. I just wanna see what it looks like, what rates are at. I also know that rates are poking around, so if we can hold out on issuing the bonds for a while, we may be able to slide down on interest rates and get a good rate too. But that may be the solution, rather than just trying to foot all this, because I'd like to kinda keep the fund. The other big one is, as we know, as the rail campus expands, we have most of those funds coming back into the electric fund. That is north of like $2.5 million, I think, when that all sells. So that would significantly increase the cash situation in the electric fund. So, Councilmember, do you have a question?
Yeah, the 1.5 for that, voltage conversion, is that multiple locations? That whole 1.5
Oh,
is
yeah.
multiple locations?
It's
How many is
I would be remiss if I could tell you exactly what it is, and I can email that to you guys. It is almost all of downtown. Kind of think of the older sections. I want to say Moffett to Ash, and maybe 3rd through 14th. I mean, it's a lot.
Sizable.
It is very sizable. It can be eaten up, but you kind of, once you go, or you get a contractor, and you just want to get it done.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I can get an exact map for you, just so you can see where it is.
I
but-
just didn't know if it'd be if that was the whole project, or if it could be like parceled out
Yep.
in
Mhm.
over time or
Both
whatever.
of these, we paid Olson to do a strategic long-term plan for us. These are the two next projects on that strategic plan. The next big one after that, that's further out, is we will need a new, probably 10 MW substation on the east end of town. All the way out, somewhere way far east, like maybe out of town east, to get ready for just the long-term needs of the rest of the city. But it needs to be east with the way that they switch and connected, so. That's also in that plan. So, those are the big tickers. Again, the recommendation of MPP was 2.9, we did a 3%, it matched CPI. We also had and it'll move up when you look at the CIP. The all-tech truck that we were 3 years out on moved up a year, so we will pay that next year, the first one. So, they released it and said, yeah, that's gonna show up next year now, which is good, because ours are getting very old, and it's really hard to service them now, so. Engineering, other than the pickup truck we talked about earlier, nothing specifically new in Mike's department. Fire and rescue, they continue to want to do some design work around the north property that we purchased back when. I know they did a bit of design work this past fiscal year, and so that's one of them. We'll have the first loan payment on Tanker 42. It's supposed to show up this year, but now
Yeah, end of the year.
I'm getting a little remiss on whether this is real or not, but we actually talked to people that said it's being built.
That's where got legal involved.
Kelly might have sent some nice letters and phone calls.
Nice.
I might have made Connor do it too, who knows? And so, I think we have one other apparatus, but we're receiving funds for that and got some grant funds and stuff. And so those are the big ticket items, there are a few smaller ones. Again, our building funds are coming in, not massive. I mean, we're still talking a couple $100,000, but we're putting those away in the sinking fund and waiting for direction from the volunteer fire department about how they want to spend those funds. So, golf, continued usage in 23-24. I think somebody told me the other day that we had more rounds by July 4th than we did for the whole year last year. I mean, it's incredibly busy out there. We continue to work on drainage issues and utilize in-house labor. I believe Dan has expressed in this budget that he would like to undertake the renovations that he did to the pond on 8. And he sat and watched that, and he's gonna work with our crews in the public properties department, and they believe they can replicate that on, I believe, hole 5. And so they're gonna tackle hole 5 if nothing changes in the proposed budget, at a significantly cheaper cost than what we paid contractors to do 8. That will help with drainage and also just improve the general play. If you've seen how tall the grass gets over there, I should let my kids go through there and try to find some cool balls before we do that. But the other one is also we're gonna look at, when we originally had some discussions back in April, we increased the groundskeeper hours. We added 120 additional hours to seasonal groundskeepers, and that was intended to cover weekends, because we got some, senior staff out there that are workhorses, that we cannot keep having come out for 8 hours every single day, every single weekend, week after week after week after week after week. And unfortunately, the seasonals, because it's a new kid, it's a new guy, we think Bill's gonna retire at some point here and be done. We don't have the longevity that we have the staff there to handle big problems when they break out or deal with the course on the weekends. And so senior staff out there has to always come in, always be on call, can't get away from the entire golf season, and that's just not gonna work. It's not gonna work long-term, it's not fair. And so, we added those additional hours, but we may adjust that. One option is also so that we have longevity and we have a plan to pass that off. Because again, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee I'm gonna be here. There's no guarantee that Derek's gonna be here, our department heads. And so every time we get together, we have discussions about succession planning. You can ask some of my department heads sitting right here, one of the questions I ask you every time we get together. And somebody has nobody, like poor Mike. Mike's like, I got nobody, it's me or nothing. But, you know, when you talk to Larry, you talk to Brandon, we talk to Bob and Bob, I always say to them, I go, something happens, you hit the lottery tomorrow, you don't come back into work, who takes over tomorrow?
Why wouldn't you come to work if you won the lottery? Don't you love your job?
I didn't ask me the question, I asked them the question. It's because I replaced the old, you got hit by a bus and you're dead. I try to give a positive spin. But we have this succession planning, and unfortunately out there in regards to the groundskeeping and the maintenance of that, there is no succession plan either. There's no one to take that over. And so we have so many seasonal hours and seasonal people, we may discuss the idea of having, converting some of those out to a full-time, which may have a small adjustment in cost, but we'll work our way through that and see what it looks like. But that would alleviate a lot of pressure potentially. But we're investigating that, but I wanted to be upfront on that one. Because we gotta make that place functional for everybody. We can't put the burden on just one person and not pass it around to the rest. So we'll keep taking a look at that. But they're doing a good job out there, and hopefully we can tackle some of those drainage items. And then we'll do some cosmetic stuff to the clubhouse, continue to work on flooring and some other elements in there. Levy, this is just a continuation, same song and dance you've heard for years. Try to finish up accreditation, try to get our hazard mitigation grant on the pump station through. Hopefully, we'll be close to a discussion here in August or in these next few weeks, because they redesigned the whole dang thing on us at 60%. So we're gonna have a discussion. But we have to prove up for that grant that there's a cost benefit analysis. That essentially we are protecting property by making these changes so that we can not flood out the interior side of the levee. And if that cost benefit doesn't work, our grant goes away. And we can't pay for the capital construction of it. And we're probably back to the drawing board because we're not gonna build that monstrosity then. We need the grant funds to get it done. Library, no significant changes on library. Parks and Rec, no significant changes. You can read through kind of the stuff on that. Obviously the turf project's floating around that you've heard about on the news. Planning and zoning, nothing major. PD, our normal 5-year basis on vehicles. The biggest one is probably a little bit of an increase in Chiefs here, but a little bit of an increase in our equipment upgrades, replacements. Our camera system will need to be, our body cams, right? And in cars will need to be replaced. And so that's the majority of that 74,900 cost. So, rail campus, nothing really there. We always keep a little 20,000 aside for engineering on that one, just in case there's special things that we need to do. Recycling, no significant issues, but we continue to see a decline, and I know Councilmember Singleton's involved in recouping some of these funds for us from our solid waste agency that we're a part of down in Milford. We're continuing to just see this thing nosedive though. The cost to us to recycle this stuff is just going up and up and up. It used to be back when we started the recycling center that we were actually making some funds or breaking even because you could really get a good price on this stuff, especially when China was taking it. Now China's not taking that stuff and hasn't for years, and so all we're doing is paying exorbitant fees to go dump it down somewhere else, whether it's with First Star Fiber or Midwest, and have them pour it all over the ground and then resort it all for us.
The revenue's not coming in from the dump, and
Nope.
Unless we wanna bring it from different states, and we don't wanna do
So, we need to have a long conversation, and I talked to the mayor about this last night, about whether long-term we wanna keep doing this. This is a service we offer and do that is offered by other people, so if there are citizens that feel strongly about recycling, you can get curbside recycling. If you feel strongly about golf, the only thing you can do for golf, if we're not doing golf right now in the city, is go somewhere else out of town for golf. You can't go anywhere else to go swimming, you'd have to go out of town. This, you can get your recycling taken care of, there is a service through multiple haulers to take care of your recycling if you needed to do it. I think what you would see is the impact on larger businesses that are utilizing us to take care of their recycling needs. So, but it is only gonna continue to get more expensive, and we're paying somebody nearly 20 hours a week now to go down there and just sort through all this stuff. So we need to find cheaper solutions, cause
that. Maybe fees. That might, if people wanna recycle, they could try raising the fees, or putting fees.
I think you put fees on it.
There are no fees,
Yeah.
right?
That's what I'm saying.
The other thing too
Well,
is.
what if we just don't
is-
have it?
Yeah, well, and that's, the other thing is just philosophically, like to Greg's point,
Trash around town.
if somebody, if you can, you know, if there's a private businesses or entities that can provide the service, which there are, then we always ask, well, then what do we need to be doing it for? Whereas if it's something that no one else is doing, then it becomes a, you know, a benefit of the community or a quality of life issue, but with this, you know, it's, you know, if, like Greg said, if you care, if this is important to you, there are people out there that you can pay to provide the service. And it doesn't necessarily fall on us because no one's doing it. That's not the case.
Yeah, it just adds more waste to landfill than our dumping fees go
Yeah.
up.
And so.
I'll be honest with you, I can't even guarantee that some of the stuff we're throwing in the recycling isn't ending up in landfill anyways. If you're keeping track of any of the news, especially on plastics recycling, it's just not economical, and nobody can do anything with it. And unfortunately, again, this is so high level, but it's that discussion of, does it make you feel good? Yes. Is it really not making it into the landfill? No. Then why are we doing it? Now, cardboard's a different one. And I've read the minutes, but I don't think at this point that Milford has said, don't take cardboard.
No.
If we ever got into that discussion, then we might need to think of something else. But
We used to benefit by giving more back to the communities, but we're not making anything.
the other thing is, again, we don't do a sizable survey of this, but we know anecdotally that other communities are bringing us on the weekends and stuff, their recycling. Because we're not sitting there going, you have to be a citizen to drop off at the recycling center, let alone it's open during the week and no one's there. So we're subsidizing it because more and more and more are getting rid of it. The other one is we talked about, well, why don't we just get those trailers, you know, that they have in Lincoln and stuff. And then Derek caught the best article yesterday that Beatrice had to shut down their cardboard recycling down there in their trailers because somebody threw dead pig inside of one of them in pieces.
That's not recyclable, by the way.
Yeah,
It's not?
you can't recycle that in there, it doesn't work.
Weird.
No.
You can send it to rendering.
Yay. So again, right now it's in there, but we need to have a discussion and do a deep dive on recycling.